single slide, not a picture, because all those pictures are available. I want to be in conversation with you all. And so I'm going to keep my eyes on, or I'm going to ask if anybody wants to say something anytime, just grab an opportunity to say something. Please don't wait until the end. This is not one of those sessions where I have lots to say, but it's going to be far more interesting for us to be in a conversation with each other. And so Taryn's recording, that was one of the notes that I wanted to make. So let me talk about Thinkers50, the organization, because I think there's something we can learn about what these people have been up to. So in 2000, two guys, Des Dearlove and Stuart Craner, got together. They had, like we do, they had a pizza. And they decided that they wanted to create this thing called Thinkers50, and it was going to be the first ever global ranking of management thinkers. So it's 23 years ago. So where they are now, 23 years later, is they are acknowledged as the world's most reliable resource for identifying, ranking, and sharing leading management ideas of our age. Their beliefs, and I think these three beliefs are really important for us to understand just a little bit about what they're up about. So firstly, they believe that the ideas have the power to change the world. So I just want to go, amen. Secondly, they believe that management is essential to human... No, I can't read my own handwriting here. Endeavors, I think. Anyway, they say that management is essential. And I must say, I do want to have a conversation with them around adding the word leadership, because there is this distinction that I think is really important, but that's what their beliefs are. And then lastly, that fresh new thinking can create a better future for all. And what I've loved in my conversations with Des and Stuart and the Thinkers50 community is just this appreciation of how everybody in that community are so committed to a better future, in whatever way they define better future. So every 2 years they have a gala event in London. In 2021 it was online, virtual. Many of you joined that call, but when they get together, it's the who is who of management thinkers. So it's a very different crowd to the... Many of you were involved in that conversation about TED. It's a different crowd from TED, because these are people who have published, who are teaching at business schools around the world. They've published, they're doing really interesting things, and so it's quite a visible group of people. So as you walk around the room, you would kind of bump into Marshall Rosenfeld, Aviva, who's a good friend of Linda. I felt like such a groupie. I walked past, or actually I saw that she was going to be inducted in something. I can't remember what. But then I was walking around and I saw her name badge, and I was like, oh, it's I had a real strong moment in that. But so that's the thing. So so Thinkers50, as you walk around the room, you bump into people who you've read or have heard about, or, you know, Amy Edmondson, which we'll talk about later. So that's the kind of crowd that comes to this. So you know, if I look around my desk and the books that are lying on the desk, it's the people who've written that list. So they have a number of lists. Now, also interesting. So they started off with one list in 2001, and over the years they've added a number of lists. So it's quite interesting how they've, you know, developed, and how their thinking has developed, and how what matters in their mind has developed. So it started off with the Thinkers50 list, which in the past used to be a list where all those 50 management thinkers were literally ranked from number 1 to 50. And it was who had the most articles in Harvard Business Review, who published the most books, who were the most visible on social media, etc. Then in 2011, they added this Distinguished Achievements Awards. I think it was at the time, it was also to kind of recognize that not all the people who are doing interesting things are involved in business schools and publish in Harvard Business Review, which is one of the things that I think provides an opportunity for us. In 2013, they introduced the Hall of Fame, which then became, so the main list, the Thinkers 50 list and the Distinguished Achievement Awards are both and biannual, so they publish them every second year. But I think as they got more kind of tuned into how this all works, they decided that they could do more. So the Hall of Fame list was, or the Hall of Fame is not a list, it's a large number of people, was introduced in 2013, and then the Radar list in 2016. So that's also an annual list, and on that list they spotlight thinkers with ideas most likely to shape the future. Now there are a few people on this call that I really want to pay attention. Craig, yet, but I don't like the fact that you're hiding behind because this is a lot of what I'm saying is for you. Then in 2022, they published there he goes, good man. He's so well trained. Can you see? You can unmute yourself if you want to shout at me or you want to curse me, Craig. In 2022, they created the management book list, which is now also an annual list. So there's been 2 years of this publishing. And then in 2023, they published the Coaching Legends. Craig, I'm going to live until your name is on either on Thinkers 50 or on Radar or on Distinguished Thinkers Award. That's just, I just want to kind of, just looking at this list, that's my one person who I'm absolutely committed to, that you're going to end up there, Craig. So that's why you need to listen to. And please switch on your phone if your video, if you want to say something. Now in 2021, it was virtual. Many of us were on that call. And I was blown away by their kind of spirit of generosity. They said they'd be thinking around, how do you rank this list of 50 people? And then they realized that actually, by the time you get to number 10, it's very hard to distinguish between 11 and 50. So that was the first year that they've decided that they will have a ranking of the first 10, because it's kind of quite an exciting thing that when the 10 gets announced. But then from number 11 to 50, they're all 11. It's like, there's 40 people are all number 11. So I love that. I don't know why. I just absolutely loved that when they did that. So quick background to my personal relationship with Thinkers 50. So in 2017, I still don't quite know how it happened. I was shortlisted for the Ideas into Practice Award, which is one of the distinguished what do they call them? No, I need to get my Distinguished Achievement Awards. Now, the Financial Times called that the Oscars of management thinking. At the time when I was nominated, I had absolutely no idea what this was about. I knew that it was kind of a big deal, but I didn't know how big the deal was. So then I attended, and I think at the time, because I was shortlisted, I must have received a cheap ticket or something, because there's no way I would have had the money or would have wanted to pay this kind of money. Now I go, what am I going to spend my money on this year? Thinkers 50 is quite high on the top of the list. I am going to find a way to get the money. So at that event, I met people like Tom Peters, who I have since then had the most generative relationship that you could possibly imagine. He is one of the kindest, most generous people. He has amplified my messages on Twitter. He's given us an endorsement for the book. He has just been amazing. So that's one person. The other person I remember at that session was Nilofer Merchant, who wrote that book, Onlyness. I don't know whether anybody's read it. I've been recommending it to everybody. But her book says, now I'm back to 2017. The book essentially says that if the people who's made the biggest impact in the world are people who have taken their own experience seriously and have looked at what is it that only no one else has had this experience with these kind of difficult, hard, easy, whatever things we've had in our lives, and then they make the most of that. And I always think there's something really powerful, and her book is just a fabulous book too. But then, because I was shortlisted, they also gave me an opportunity to present the Partners for Possibility story. And Tom was at the back of the room, and he walked up to me afterwards and gave me this big hug, and he said, one day I want I want business schools to be abolished and they should all just do programs like Partners for Possibility. And I remember how I just felt such a sense of, I don't know, being seen, being valued, being acknowledged. I don't know what it was, but it did something quite, on an identity level to me. So then in 2018, I was nominated for the radar list. So how this community works is that the radar list is then the people who typically would in future win some of the Distinguished Achievement Awards, or in future would make it onto the top 50 list. They're not quite on the top 50 list, but they might make it there. Then in 2019, it was in London, I attended, and then in 2020, nothing happened. 2021, they contacted me and said, Louise, our Hall of Fame is very white and very northern hemisphere. Can you identify some people in South Africa or in Southern Hemisphere that we should acknowledge and induct into the Hall of Fame? I mean, these are people like Gary Hamel or Sumanta Ghoshal, or all our heroes. So I said Dr. Royal Khoza. I nominated Dr. Royal Khoza, and I sent all of his details and everything, and then they inducted him into the Royal Hall of Fame. And one of the purposes of this conversation today is to invite more of you to help us spot South African thinkers, and so that when that call comes, when they say, who should we invite onto the radar list, or who should we invite into that's how they work. They work through people. They don't sit behind their desk and go through documents. They ask us. And I am fed up with how few Black people there are on their list. I'm fed up with how few people from Africa there are on their list, from South Africa, from the Global South. And so I feel, I have personally been saying all along, I know that I want to do everything I can to get more Black, African, South African, Global South people on these lists, but I definitely can't do it on my own. So my request really is, it's an invitation for all of us. There's ways and means we can learn how to work this. There's a system, and these people from the global north know how to work the system. We are not good at working the system, and we need to get better at working the system. So, Craig Aikman, did you hear my? I am looking, but you're one of many, and you need to help us find out who the other people should be. So then that's 2021, and then in 2021, again, when some of you were on that call, I received the Ideas into Practice Award, and I must admit I was very jealous when I walked around Guildhall this time, and everybody was there in their beautiful gowns, and it was a beautiful setting, and they all got their awards, and my award was sent to me with DHL. I opened the package, and there was this, and I said to Amy Edmonds, I said, Amy, do you remember you and I were in the green room when we were waiting for the awards to be? She said, yes, but it wasn't the same, was it? And she got a nomination again this time, so she had that opportunity. I missed all of that. But that was I think if I look at my life, that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is winning that, getting that Ideas into Practice Award. And then in 2022, I nominated a few people for the Radar Award, and Lorenzo Daniels made it onto the Radar Award. And then this year, there was no South Africa, not anywhere. And so I don't think that's okay. I think we can do a better job of celebrating our thinkers. So let me stop there and hear whether anybody has a comment to make about what I've said so far. I see there's three messages in the chat. Craig says yes, always good. He's so good with listening to what I'm telling him to do. Sorry, Craig. We can have fun at each other's expense, can't we? Anybody want to comment on what I've said so far? No?
I'd love to, Louise. It's Amanda. Hello. and I think this, Yes, this has gone as far as affecting the pandemic as well. So ultimately, rather than the make a plan country sitting down and making a plan for the make a plan country, we sat and waited for someone in another hemisphere to actually do the thinking for us. And for example, we could have rustled all the local universities together, all that TB experience, all that HIV experience. And in a 6-month period, we could have put together a needle-free, temperature-stable mucosal vaccine, nasal, fermented from soil probiotics with a spliced universal protein, and we had the wherewithal to do it, but we were too busy waiting for the global north to come to us with their -70 requirements. Am I making sense? So I completely agree with you. And the lovely lady from Barbados, she's the Prime Minister of Barbados, was saying very much the same thing at the Mandela lecture last year, that the global south needs to start putting its own thinking processes together, because what happens in the north is not necessarily helpful or applicable to the south at all. We've got a completely different world down here.
Well, and sorry, I'm so glad that you can't see my office and you can't see my desk, but this is why I can reach out and touch a book. This guy, Santiago Rincon Gallardo, says the world's problems will be solved when the global north gets interested in what's going on in the global south and then help us to amplify. Point is, we have to do the work. So I'm personally, I mean, many of you might know the story that when I when my tenure at Partners for Possibility, I never know how to say this, but anyway, when I left Partners for Possibility, saddest moment of my life, when I knew it was going to happen, I went to speak to Thuli Madonsela and to Jonathan Jansen, and both of them said to me, you should go to the US. You should, Thuli said you should go to Harvard to study, do the ALI. Jonathan said you should go to Stanford. And I said, no, I don't want to go away. I want to be here. And I really do think I personally have a responsibility with regard to getting South African thinking into the world, which is why I'm so excited. Quite a few of you are involved in the book that we're writing about the Springboks and leadership lessons from the Springboks. And we've now got a publisher who is going to help us get that message out to the world so that it is leadership lessons from the Springboks from South Africa for the world. Well, for South Africa and then for the world. So yeah, but the point is just that we can't wait. And one of the things that I would be I will always be grateful about when Prof. Volmink was involved in Partners for Possibility, and he knew what we were doing. He said to me, Louise, you cannot just do the work. You have to create the artifacts. And I said, what do you mean? He said, write the book. And so we wrote the first book, and that book has given us so much credibility because we wrote the book. And we do have a publisher in South Africa. Knowledge Resources is happy to publish books, and that's partly why I won the Ideas into Practice Award, is because there was a book. I would never have won it I wouldn't have never have received it if it wasn't for the book that we wrote. So and many of us are tentative about writing. I remember how tentative I was, but yeah, I think it's time. We are being called to speak up and let our message be heard. Okay, so I will continue. So what I've also, I talked earlier about, oh my word, let me just see. Okay, yeah. So I thought, well, if I had to give you an executive summary of this year's gala, because I'm going to talk about some of the detail, but let's start with the executive summary. One of the guys that was on the radar list with me in 2017 or whatever, we were both nominated for something, is a guy called Dan Pontefract. So 2017, that means 6 years ago, I met him. And Dan and I have remained connected on social media, and we have regular conversations. He's just one of the most interesting people. He's got another book that's coming out now. And he wrote a LinkedIn article about this. I just want to read a few things in what he said. So he says, what happens when a room full of people incredibly passionate about the future of work, life, society, and everything in between get together for several days after being 4 years apart? And he says, they hug, they laugh, and they have a few drinks. That's what they do. And then he continues, he says, I've realized, so he kind of has these three things. He says, first, connection is everything. There were people I've known for many years that I got to catch up with again. There were new thinkers that I'd never met before. Connection really is everything. Without those great connections, whether old or new, it's difficult to feel both self-worth and to evoke different ideologies in one's thinking. Bring on the connection. Thinkers50 is all about relationships, and it's about opportunities for people to be in conversation with each other. That's the whole design of the, so it's 1.5 days. It's Sunday lunchtime to Monday evening this year, because I think that's the cheapest that you can get guild orders if you do it on a Sunday afternoon on a Monday. But the whole thing is designed for people to be in conversation with each other. So you have that constant feeling of meeting new people and feeling that you're going to be connected with them. A second kind of, again, in the spirit of executive summary, is the amazing spirit of generosity and abundance. From Stuart and Des, I was kind of playing around with showing their videos. On the Thinkers50 website, there are 3 videos that they've made that are, all 3 of them just take the mickey out of these 2 guys. It is the funniest videos. But it really is kind of created or crafted to make fun of these 2 guys. But but what I love about them is their spirit of generosity. Everything they're doing is designed to make other people shine and to be servant leaders to this community and to create opportunities for them and to celebrate them. If you look at what they say, both in person and on social media and in the media, what they say about these thinkers, I mean, you walk out of there feeling like $1 million because of Des and Stuart. And we just say so much that we can learn from. So spirit of generosity and abundance. The third thing that Dan also picked out, he said, what I felt is this amazing spirit of humility and no ego. So this is, I'm using Dan's words here. He said, whilst the room was full of really super duper intelligent people, there was no ego. Everyone seemed to want to help each other. There were so many offers for future assistance. People were hungry, curious, wanting to learn from each other. They wanted to be inspired and inspire others with a sense of giving and humility. I felt that this collection of 500 or so people was there not because of ego, but because of connection, community, and of missing something over the last 4 years. So humility, no ego, whether it's Marshall Rosenberg, whether it is Amy Edmondson, whether it was, oh my goodness, the woman, I can't think of the other person's name now, but it will come. Now, the other thing that struck me, which was a bit weird, actually, I have to say this was weird for me, was that 80% of the speakers were women. And I was like, I was curious. I'm still curious. And I'm wondering whether it's because Des and Stuart are aware of the fact that they are on the stage often and that they wanted to make sure that there's nobody could ever point a finger to them that they are too male dominated. But the other interesting thing is that there's a lot of women who are doing some really interesting work. And I'm just I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at the list of the top 50 thinkers. Maybe someone on the list wants to look and see whether they are as skewed towards women, but there was a lot of women on the stage. And then, the third one was just the humor. That was just so evident and obvious the whole time. I love British humor. Love them lots. And then the last kind of thing in spirit of executive summary, and then I'm going to ask anybody who wants to comment or say something, was this commitment to be a contribution, to do more than just deal with the issues in organizations and leadership, but to really look at what is our contribution way beyond just kind of the corporate or the business world. So in Dan's word, Dan says, third and finally, the reason why many attendees continue to push their own thinking is because they want to improve tomorrow for the kids, the organization, the communities they live in, and society writ large. So before I continue, any thoughts, comments on what I've said so far? Goodness, this is a quiet group. I'm wondering whether you're all here. I can see your faces.
Louise, I've just put a name in the chat box there. I don't know whether you know Dr. Carney. She's very controversial, but I mean, also what you were saying about the global South and, always being the poor cousins in the world. She has got some very interesting stats and very interesting ideas on why this should not be the case and where we should be in the world. And it's very inspiring to listen to her and to listen to her stuff. So have a look at that and see if we're on the right track. I think that would be my recommendation. Definitely.
Well, I think Lorraine, just because I know how busy I am, one of the ways, so if you're not part of the African Leadership Group already, my invitation would be for you to join the African Leadership Group, and I'll put my, but if you are, to share it, I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat, and not just for you, Lorraine, but anybody else. If you're not part of African Leadership, join that group and then share the kind of these ideas, or invite those people to join us and to come and share us, or invite us. I think we need to, because it's now so easy to do a Zoom call. If someone kind of took a little bit of initiative and says, I will host this person and you're all invited to come, or let's find some time that works for all of us. So my invitation is, or my request is, I think this is something that we can all do together. So Lorraine, please, if you can invite,
I will. Yes, fine.
Maybe just a short snippet so that we can start to get introduced, or maybe one of her books, or because there are some amazing people. I keep surprised by what amazing people, but we are not doing a good job of celebrating our own. So how can we expect the global to pay attention to what we're doing?
Yeah.
Louise, I experienced exactly the same thing at the Global Aging Network conference that I attended in Scotland last month. And Famada Shaman, who spoke on behalf of the whole African continent, we kind of afterwards said that Global North does not understand what aging means in the Global South. And we need to actually be the ones who step up to educate and because some of the solutions here are not what we're going to get from the Global North.
Well, and our solutions can make a big difference there, and I think this kind of inviting for the Global South to become a laboratory or a university for people to come and learn, rather than all of us always standing and waiting for in Amanda's terms, waiting for the new knowledge to come from Boston and London. I mean, it cannot be okay for us anymore. So I feel so passionate about it. So, and, Linda, people like you and what you're doing, and I just think we need to write, and it doesn't have to be books to start with, but it needs to be articles that get published, that we can celebrate, that we can kind of, raise awareness of. Now, there's an immediate opportunity. They've now, one of the things they started to do is they've started to publish books, and they have Wiley chomping at the bit to publish books written by this community. And their first book that they wrote was Certain Uncertainty. And many of the people who made it onto the list, or who received Distinguished Achievement Awards or got invited to be the radar list, was part of this publication. And their next publication, their next book, that they're waiting for people to send them chapters that they can get excited about, is on, now tell me, which topic do you think would be perfect for people from our community to respond? And I won't do what teachers do and go, so who's it? But anyway, here's the topic. The topic is human connection. So surely we can have some South African authors in the human connection book. And I don't want to be the only one. I'm fed up of showing up in these places and I'm looking around and I'm looking for the South Africans and I'm the only South African. Sorry, I sound quite, that was quite in your face, but anyway.
And I do think it's even I hope it's a Biko quote, Louise, but it's the quote that goes somewhere that the West, i.e. the North, has given the world a military and industrial face. It's up to us to give the world a human face, basically.
I'm going to give it to, I'm going to give you the whole quote immediately, if I can just remember quickly who I sent it to recently. Pete Laban and I had this conversation. So exactly, that is exactly.
Yes.
But we're not doing our job.
No.
So sorry, no, I can't find it now. But I agree with you.
It's not to say that the North doesn't have good ideas. They just may need a serious amount of tweaking when they come here. So they can be a source of good ideas. There's a lovely foundation in the UK called the Point of Care Foundation that have effectively proven with some very good research that, guess what, when you care about the job you do a better job in healthcare. And there are less accidents and there's less negligence, and it saves the health service an absolute fortune. So we've proposed this to the Deputy Health Minister that in the NHI incubator, there needs to be a pilot department of care, compassion and humanity that actually looks at each decision that is made and says, was it made with care? And was it made with compassion? And was it made with thought for the patient rather than your back pocket and your everything? So from clinical to financial. And they're interested, if that makes sense, but it's in alignment with the notion of Biko's quote.
But, you know, I remember when I first wanted to take Partners Possibility into America, and I was so excited about what we were doing. And they said, no, don't come here until you've got some credibility. I said, how do I get credibility? They said, write a book. So I do think it's time for us to kind of write about what we believe in. So here's the quote, Amanda. He says, the great powers of the world may have done wonders in giving the world an industrial and military look. Yeah, and look where that got us. But the great gift still has to come from Africa, giving the world a more human face. Steve Biko. So, okay, so I'll keep going, because I don't get any engagement apart from Amanda and Linda. Thank you to you too. If you didn't do that, I would be very unhappy now at this point. So last time when I did the Thinkers50 feedback session, I realized that I can't just talk about what happened in the room. I need to talk about some other things as well. So many of you will know that I write when I go to meetings, and I have notebooks for different clients, different projects, but it gets exhausting to cover them. I'm looking at my desk here. I'm only showing half my notebooks to you because the other notebooks are lying there because it's projects that can't live that life anymore. And so I want to introduce you to the Remarkable. The Remarkable is a electronic notebook. And so you write as you would. Where's my thing now for today? Let me find you no, I need to just find. Okay, there you go. I was there now, just now. So you write like you would on a piece of paper. It's like an iPad, but it's just specifically for writing. There's no other tech involved. You can email the stuff to yourself, but it's shared on the cloud. But I'm loving my Remarkable. So I am, this whole design was done on my Remarkable. So that's just in case anybody's been wondering, should I get one? Yes, you should. So the agenda, what they did this year, which I think this is also an innovation in terms of how Thinkers50 did it. They did a 2-day virtual session that anybody could attend. You didn't need to have bought tickets for the big event in order to attend. You could just attend. And then they did the live event. And what I've noticed about the agenda is that the people who are on the agenda are all then mostly people who are also either getting awards or, be on the radar list or the T50 list. So just a few things about what was covered in the agenda. Again, all these women. The first speaker of the whole conference on the Sunday afternoon was the woman who ultimately ended up winning the Ideas into Practice Award. She was shortlisted in 2021 for the Coaching and Mentoring Award, and she also was on the radar list last year in 2022. She's the founder of the Leadership Development Institute for Young Women. Oh my word. They do amazing work. They have developed a program which I think is on par with many of the things that we would do in large corporates, and they deliver it over a period of, I think it's 9 or 12 weeks of a young woman's high school career. So from grade, I think probably about grade 9, 10, 11, 12, that these women do this 12-week program, and the impact on these young women's lives who never thought of themselves as leaders, but discovered that they are leaders through being part of this program, and then got equipped to step up and lead at school. And I'm currently we're doing some work with a international call center company who wants to bring 9,000 seats to South Africa. And one of the problems in the BPO world that you may all know is that the kids get, or young people get, they start their career at the call center at age 18. But the way that the industry works is you really should be able to be promotable into a team leader job by age 19. And so what they're saying is it's too late to start with leadership development at age 19. You should start with leadership development at age 14. So that the kids arrive with a portfolio of evidence when they start this new job, and then they're ready to be promoted to team leader 2 years later. So her work, Julie Carrier is her name. It's definitely worth, anybody interested in youth leadership development, I think that's definitely worth paying attention to. Thinkers50 has also started their Make a Difference initiative. This year they are asking everybody in the community to make themselves available as mentors to the Oprah Winfrey Scholars. And so they've got this amazing program where they support young people on a journey. But in the States, because we've not put our hands up first, we've not asked first. So I think we need to be clear about what is our ask and go and present it and network and become friends and do all that stuff. And then the next person who spoke was Dory. Now I can't think for the life of me what Dory's surname is, so I have to quickly go to my other page, my Thinkers50 page, so that I can find Dory's details. So this is the only thing, it's easier to find your place in the, I'll get there in a minute, I know where to go.
Sorry, Louise,
yes.
the first lady, the Judith, what is her surname? How do you spell it?
Julie, I'm going to tell you now what her name is, because I've got it here. Dory Clark, by the way, is the other person. But Julie, oh my word, she just blew my mind. Julie Carrier. Carrier. It's either Carrier, C-O or C-A. So this is the only problem. My handwriting is not so fabulous.
Okay.
But Julie.
So the remarkable doesn't sort out your handwriting. That's very disappointing.
No, it doesn't make it neater, but it can translate it into text if you want to. And it does, there is AI involved, and it does learn how to translate it, but I'm not learning.
How many put in your leg with?
I know. So that was day one. Day one, it was Julia Carrier. We then listened to Dory. I keep not getting to Dory's names. And I know how I am learning how to use this remarkable properly, but I'll get there. Dory Clark. Her focus is networking and mentoring. She did a fantastic presentation about networking and mentoring. And Ruth Godian, who was the Radar Award winner in 2010, did a wonderful piece about success factor. But the reality is that this first half day was really to just get us talking to each other and to be in relationships. So there was a lot of thinking, a lot of, drinking tea and drinks and stuff before the session. We went into the session, and then we had lots of drinks at the end. So that was day one of the session. And by this time, I didn't have any other books or anything that I wanted to talk to you about. I'll do that now. But any comments, any thoughts about day one? and what I've said so far? No? Thank you, Alex, for what was that thing that you posted, Alex? I can't see it. Can you read it for us?
It's the quote that is used to be done to Albert Einstein, that you cannot solve the problems with the same mindset or thinking that you created them with. So we need to find new ways. It's not working when we just try to be more clever with the old ways.
Exactly, and we are the leaders we've been waiting for. So we have to find those new ways. It's not, we can't continue to wait for someone else to come up with new ways. Bash needs to leave. It's so nice, all these principals and educators and people who've been with us. Shall I keep going for a little longer, and then I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna hear your thoughts. So the next day, Monday, it was a full day because it started at, we needed to be there at 8, just after 8, and I went home at 11:30 and had to go because the tubes were going to stop running. First session was Amy Edmondson. Now, any of us, Greg's on the call, will know that, you know, her work on psychological safety has been incredibly impactful. And it was so interesting how just about every single speaker who spoke, both on the first day and the second day, referenced psychological safety somewhere in the conversation. Her new book on failing, I've started reading it, I've not finished it, is getting a lot of very good press. What they do with this is they really have only one person on the stage because they want to demonstrate this idea of working together. So what they did is they asked Amy and Sheena to kind of plan to do a session together. Sheena is a blind member of the Thinkers50 community, or she's one of the top 50 thinkers, and their topic was think bigger. And was so wonderful to hear how these two people from such different worlds were kind of finding each other and then creating a narrative about thinking bigger, creating environments where people can be psychological safe, feel safe to fail, but still fail, and then go for bigger intentions. So that was a fabulous way to start the session. The second session, for many of us, this will resonate. The name of the session was Getting to the Heart of Leadership, and they had 3 women in the session. So a coach, Sunyan Sang, but Kirsten Ferguson. So this is a thinker. She's Global South. She's from Australia, and she gets described as an emotional intelligent activist or something. But her book, and she won the Thinkers50 Leadership Award this year, and her book is called Head and Heart: The Art of Modern Leadership. And what she does, which is so interesting, is she looks at the leadership competencies that leaders need in order to lead from their head, and then in order to lead from their heart. And she's created, all sorts of questionnaires and things for people to kind of identify and where are they and what do they need to do. But she was definitely someone worth looking at, and I'm definitely going to read her book. Kirsten Ferguson, Head and Heart: The Art of Modern Leadership. My sense is that will resonate very much with all of us. And then Alison Meister, who's from IMD, she's a radar, and she was shortlisted for one of the awards. And then the guy I was sitting at the table with, I was going on and on and on about, I can't remember what I was going on. Anyway, he got interested and we started talking, and he wrote this book called Love at Work: The Final Frontier of Empathy and Leadership. He said, we've been talking about empathy all this time, but actually empathy is actually love. So, and you've all heard me talk about love at work, so I cannot read this. Corey Block, I haven't read his book. I haven't read any of it yet. Corey is one of so there's this 100 top coaches initiative that everybody's talking about now, and he's one of the 100 top coaches, and he lives in Dubai, and he's the kind of number one. If you search Corey Block, his name comes up with all of the really important coaches. But he's such a nice guy, and I can't wait to read that book. The third session, and this is another example of South Africans, we need to get our voices heard. The session was titled Start with Respect, but there were 3 women, so it was actually about DEI. And so Rishika Tolston, Modupe Akinda, and Rukasana Beji. My takeout from that session is, why do we not have South Africans on that list? Because we have so much to teach the world about what we've done around finding each other across these boundaries. So I was sitting there thinking, I cannot believe that we're still looking at the same old stuff. When we look at DEI, we hear, you know, the stuff that comes from the States, but it's not infused by insight from the global South and from specifically from South Africa. So yeah, we have so much to export to the world, to be a contribution to new thinking. We do not need to continue to be a beneficiary of the same old. Exactly to your point, Alex, there's new stuff developing here that we need to come up with. The fourth session was called Speak Up, and Megan writes, so Megan and I share a connection because we were both at Ashridge at one point. Her book is called Speak Up, Say What Needs to Be Said and Hear What Needs to Be Heard. And I've also downloaded that book. I'll be reading that. And she was also on the radar list in 2018. We're going to miss you, Jackie, but we are recording, so if you want to later, you can listen to the rest. And then her guest on stage was James or Jim Detted. Don't know how you pronounce his surname, but his book is called Choosing Courage. So what happens, as you will learn, is you leave the Thinkers50 session with a long reading list. So I've downloaded all these on my Kindle, cannot wait. So that's their session on speaking up. Then, and I'm going to stop talking in a minute, the Ghost in the Machine. It's so interesting for me that in every session and everywhere where I go, internationally, locally, virtually, face-to-face, there's a session on AI. I didn't think the Thinkers50 session on AI was nearly as good as any of the stuff I saw at TED. So I wasn't wildly impressed with any of that. It's kind of interesting, but not massively. Then the next session was a session on reinventing yourself in the age of AI. And you can imagine that all of the kind of call to say that it's about being more human and to be relatable and to have relationships and to be connected, because AI can't do that. Then we kind of got to the end of the sessions. There was a session on sustainable species. So the guy who wrote Net Positive with Paul Polman, Andrew Winston, was the speaker. He also won one of the awards that evening. And the question that he is challenging everybody is the world better off because your business or you are in it? Which I think is a good question for all of us to ask. Then they had a session on, the same session around role of business in society. We need bolder innovation. We need to be a first somewhere. And their kind of takeout was, what if well-being and thriving are the key metrics for the world that we're living in now and for the next time? And then second last session was Rita McGrath and Amy Webb. Amy Webb was, I think, number 3 or 4. She's amazing. Her work is on strategic foresight. There are many clever people on this call who would love to know more about Amy Webb. It's not necessarily where I want to go, but that's been very interesting for me to hear what she had to say. So Amy Webb, remember that name. Rita McGrath has taught us a lot about how to manage your brand. I think we can all learn from Rita around how to manage your brand. So that was the formal sessions. We then had all time to go and become beautiful, and we were all there in Guildhall. And then the last part of the day was just the celebration of these the achievement awards and the list of the top 50 thinkers that was announced, number 10, 9, 8, whatever, and then they got to the end they started off introducing the 40, and then they counted down from 10 to 1. So that's it. That's my feedback from the Thinkers 50 Award. And I'm curious to hear some feedback. And if you think it's going to be better for you to go into small groups, or for us to go into small groups, given that we now have 18 people left, let me know if that's going to be a more fun thing for you to do, go into small groups. Or whether we should call this, said we've come to the end, but we haven't heard enough voices. We've only heard my voice.
Louise, I guess one of the things I'm hearing is your frustration about not enough Africans and South Africans and so on. And then there seemed to be a sort of a recipe that involved, write a book. And but I detoured off and went to look at all the books that have been published by Knowledge Resources. And there's a lot. So, I'm being a bit provocative. I just want to say I'm not sure that a book's enough.
Not enough.
Yeah. So
no.
What is it? What is it? Yeah. So maybe the group could just think about what is it?
It's the publication in the book. It's the article in Harvard Business Review. It's, I've never been published in Harvard Business Review, but I'm quite noisy on social media. So the reason why I made it onto that list is because I don't stop talking on social media. And I engage with people all the time. So I suspect that's part of the solution.
That's a lot of self-promotion. I mean, I know you just, your personality and your drive and your absolute determination to get this message out there is quite an engine. Anyway, I'm just curious about why so much of this is the North and not the South. And how do you get into that conversation if you're not promoting yourself aggressively, or being promoted?
Promoting. I think it's about being visible. I think it's about participating. It's about showing up in the spaces where these people are virtually, and where they read and where they. So I don't think it's self-promoting as much as being present and available, Craig. And it'd be interesting if you look at that list of 50, if you kind of look the top 50, if you looked at so Adam Grant is number 2. Adam Grant writes more articles than any of us. He writes a book a year. He's very visible and active on social media. Simon Sinek is on the list. I haven't looked. Maybe you guys can say what struck you about the list that you've seen if you look at that list of 50, of the other the top 10 and then the other 40. Almin, I see you unmuted.
Oh, sorry, Louise. Actually, I dropped off. I had a bit of a Wi-Fi dip here. But I just want to comment on what you've said. And also, I think what Craig alluded to is it's really about showing up. I've been on a group recently where it was the same conversation, where do all the people disappear to? Because we create all these opportunities for people to share and to tell us about their work, what they do. And I think it's really, I don't know if it's a culture thing, but some people just have the ability, like yourself, to create these groups, these platforms for people to share, and other people actually shy away from that. But I really think people should start to talk about other people's contributions, for those people self to start to talk about it, share, and it's really to show up, because the platforms exist. These invites are there. Why are people not on your network today, on this platform?
But I don't think people who show up here today will end up on Thinkers 50. We're talking about how do you get onto that Thinkers 50 list. So if you look at the top 10 of that Thinkers 50, I agree with you that we need to show up, but people are busy, and but so I think we need to just say, how do we get the Global South seen, acknowledged, being invited to be part of the conversation in the global activities. Now, Craig, I had to do something today with someone else, and I've realized that one of the things that we've done through Partners Possibility is we were very intentional about publishing in international journals, and not not academic articles, just articles. So, for example, there was an article about partners possibility in the Globally Responsible Leadership Initiative magazine. There was one in the Appreciative Inquiry magazine. There was one in the Appreciative Inquiry globally, you know, those kind of things. So I think there is also something about showing up and participating globally, not just publishing and writing books. Does that resonate, Craig, or not? I want to just look at the list of and see what do we know about.
I'm processing it because what it's more. I think the book is the metaphor for sharing, and engaging and sharing and engaging, not necessarily with the intention of getting onto Thinkers50, but a more broader thing about engaging and sharing about the work that's being done here in South Africa. And yes, maybe we need to then click onto the structures of that the structure of sharing, at least in this sort of space. And that structure is articles, not just a LinkedIn post or something. And maybe a book is part of that recipe. But the heart of it does seem to be.
I do think it's and Craig. So if you look at Adam Grant, who's number 2. So Amy, I think, you know, she's written Psychological Safety, that went viral. She's at Harvard. So you kind of get your head around why she's on this. But Adam is a prolific contributor to the world, you know, articles, books, LinkedIn post, Twitter. Adam is very visible. You don't go anywhere without bumping into Adam at some point. And a few years ago, he was nowhere. He literally, it was in the last few years that he became this very, very visible person. This number 3 is Andrew Winston and Paul Polman. Now, Paul Polman was a massive, big CEO of GE. Oh, sorry, where was he? Unilever. So that kind of makes it. Amy Webb, Craig Yateman, is very like you. She's very smart, and she's developed a new way of thinking about strategic foresight. I think in many ways she developed the term. She's just kind of set herself up as a contributor to the world. So when I heard her speak, Craig, I thought of you. That's me showing the extent of how I'm a fan of Craig Yateman. The next 2 is Chan Kim and Renee Marburg. Now, you may know that they developed the Blue Ocean Strategy, and that went viral, and so they've just been very prolific.
They're attached to INSEAD, at the Blue Ocean Institute at INSEAD.
Yeah, so they were at INSEAD. Then Sheena. Now, it'd be interesting to see, because Sheena is blind, guys. She's got some, you know, she's overcome some really tough issues. And when you read the definition, it says she's a leading expert on choice, studying the factors that influence the choices we make and how choice and meaning are intertwined. Then Rita McGrath. Now, Rita has just decided that she's going to be well known. So if you look at how what she does and how visible she is, that's very interesting. Now, the next one, I wouldn't have put them on number 8. But clearly, I'm not tuned into their lives again enough. It's Alex Osterwilder and Yves Pigner. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But they developed the business model canvas. So that's, again, they developed a tool. Craig, this is the point. You have so many tools and things that you've developed that Scott Anthony, leading advisor on innovation and champion of dual transformation strategy. And then Sidal Neely. I didn't know anything about these people. So if you look at the rest of them, and there are 40 of them, many of these names we've never heard, but some we have. And so that's the thing. Dory Clark. Dory has decided that she's going to be on this list. She has just been out there, participating, contributing, and you can't miss her. Kirsten has just written this book. Yeah. Any other thoughts on any of this? Linda Grattan's on the list. But Craig, you better start writing, because I want to go to Thinkers50 and celebrate you as on this list. And many other people, but you specifically. Hubert Joly is on this list. Martin Lindstrom, Roger Martin, Nilufer Merchant. She was Erin Mayo, who wrote that book about the culture at Netflix. She was a professor. She just chose to write a book with a very, well-known person, Dan Pink. Megan writes. Anybody else? Any other thoughts from anybody else? Okay, so then
I'll just sort of wrap up my thought on it, though, Louise. I mean, I love the fact that you're on your way to the top 50. I mean, very proud of you when you get there. No, you are. You just got to keep going. But I think you never started any of the stuff you were doing to get on the top 50. You were cause driven. And I think it's that, I wish that we could mirror your levels of passion and just the way that you drive at these things, and you should stand next to people like Linda Grattan. For the rest of us, I think at least what I'm taking away is, if we are developing good work wherever we may be, whether that's it's Greg, Almeen, Amanda, people who are on this call, if we're doing good work, maybe we just need to dig a bit deeper and start to push it out there a bit better. That's my takeaway. And then maybe, who knows, but let's not hide that light under a bushel. Let's try and get it out there.
And Craig, it's us then celebrating each other. So every time I amplify one of your LinkedIn posts, that's how we do this. These people know how to do that. If you keep an eye on how generous Amy is and how generous people are to Amy, because they know that they are amplifying each other's work. And I know many people have issues with Elon Musk. I think we need to be on Twitter or X, whether we agree with Elon or not. But these guys are everywhere. Dan Pink is on Twitter. He's on, I haven't seen him on Twitter so much, but he's now on TikTok. He sends his stuff to me on TikTok all the time, on Instagram. They've all got mailing lists of people who are interested in their work. They are actively engaging. They're not sitting waiting for people to discover them and discover their thinking. So, yeah, I know I'm putting you on the spot, Craig, but I have expectations, and I'm sure there are many other people. So tell me who else on this group wants to be on the Thinkers 50 list in the next 10 years, and let's all work together to make that happen. And Karen is saying, what stops us from creating our own top 50 thinkers in the South? Well, the first thing we need to do, Karen, when that call comes and say, please, can you send me the list of the people we should put on the radar list? I just need people to say, these are the people that we need to have on the radar list. But the radar list requires either a really solid article on HBR or some really solid thing you've done, or a book. So get those books written. Now, the thing is, Craig, our guys who write for the knowledge resources things are usually quite broad. It's not focused. I think there's also something about focus. So you're rethinking performance management, for example. If you have a really provocative thing about performance management, and we in South Africa all start to say, Craig Yateman is the new leading light on performance management, and we all decide we are your cheerleaders, before long they're going to get interested. And then the other thing is, I think we need to be in the room at the Thinkers 50 event even before we get to the list.
Do you think you should start a Thinkers 50 Southern Hemisphere, like a warm-up club, like a training camp, like a provincials club, where you just have a call and you say, look, I've got 10 of you and I want you to, I don't know. I mean, I know you're going to just kick that back and say, why don't you do it? But it feels like you need a warm-up zone.
Maybe the warm-up zone is our own TEDx. Maybe we should have more TEDx events that are that where we give people an opportunity, because a lot of the TED speakers who end up at TED start their first thing was they were a TEDx speaker. Many of the Thinkers50 people have never been a speaker at TED, but most of them have done a TEDx talk. And we can do TEDx talks at universities. You know, there are all sorts of places in which we can do it. So that's another way, is let's get those TEDx talks done. Let's amplify them. Let's share them with each other. Craig, I hear your call to me. I'm not quite ready for it right now, but maybe when we've done this thing with Springboks Books, we can think about that. But I just don't want us to continue to, you know, be so invisible. We have so much to offer to the world. And we're not doing. And Bill, who's in the US, is nodding his head.
Canada, we're a little bit like South Africa in that America runs the world, sort of, and yet not all the good ideas are in America, but they would have you believe they are. And but showing up is so critical. I don't have anything, I can't match any of you on what you do because you are way up there. But I commend you for your work. I'm just a fellow from the community in Kingston, Ontario. And I would say, I'll repeat this for your benefit. Louise came to lead a conference in Plattsburgh, New York for me in October of 2011. And it was very amazing. It just was amazing. We had tried to reach a fellow named Peter Block, and Peter Block's office said, oh, no, he's too old, doesn't do those things anymore. But we have this up-and-comer, this protege. Wow, what a gift she was to us. And I don't know, there aren't very many people from up here on this call, but I must say I'm thrilled to be here and just to be listening to the conversation. And clearly, the brain power isn't just all at the Harvard Business School or anywhere else. There's all sorts of it around. And if you give yourself voice, that's so amazing. And you know, we have our little project now in Johannesburg, you know, to provide blankets for poor people. And it's, you know, we're just raising some money for a little project in your land. I work in India and Sri Lanka and Pakistan and Kenya and Uganda and Malawi, and through service projects in Bolivia and El Salvador. But the story is the same wherever we go. And how do we believe in ourselves and make it happen when it's going against our way, or when the big city has all the news and all the money and it hardly ever trickles out to the smaller places? Does that mean the smaller places are any less valuable or any less valid? Oh, I just really commend you for what you're doing. It's so fascinating. And don't give up on yourselves. It's you know, pat yourself on the back. It's hard. This shoulder isn't very good. The other one I can reach. And so, Louise, thank you to your office for allowing me to be on this call. And I'm forever grateful. We run into each other but once a year. Thanks to your office reaching out. And it's kind of lifts me up. I was doing a television interview this morning. Like, this is still morning here. It's 9:30 in the morning. It's 7. And we were talking about something, and I had a colleague on, and he wanted to give too many facts. And it's not about the facts, it's about the story. And, you know, we only had a 5-minute bit on TV, and you can't use it up with facts. I mean, it's my problem. We were thinking about it. Like, I own it, but it should be, how do we connect? It's not through fact. This isn't a court of law. This is about reaching people and where in their heart. So, you know, Louise, from you and others, I should tell you that in our world, we have National Philanthropy Day coming. And I don't know if it's big, but in our place on December the 7th, we have National Philanthropy Day. And about a couple of weeks ago, we received an email that said, congratulations, you're going to be my wife and I, our philanthropist of the year kind of thing. What? And the next email was from a fellow who was from a local university, fellow had given them $100 million. And I said, well, what happened? Why didn't he get this? And sometimes it's not about the money. It's about connecting. It's about listening. It's about engaging. He could probably do another 100 million to somebody else. But I don't know. I'm just thrilled. And the work that you do gives us all life. So don't get down yourself. But I do believe South Africa, like so many other places, needs to kind of find a way to put its elbows out there and tell your story.
And Bill, what you're reminding me of is when you look at that Julia story about what she does with these young women, is she helps them find their voice, and then she helps them stand taller, and then they go into the world. And maybe we need to do some leadership development on ourselves. And maybe we need to, Craig, I'm picking on you because you are one of the people who have been, your amazing mind and your amazing thinking has it's hidden. The world doesn't know about it. But it applies to all of us. And so my kind of, maybe I'm more known because I've been so desperate to get that story out. But I think we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our country, we owe it to the world for us to be present. And it is about showing up. So I'm going to leave this conversation on that. Tonight, let me tell you about what I'm doing tonight. We are hosting Wayne Divenacher. So I want to end with a few invitations here. So the first one is we're hosting Wayne Divenacher. Wayne Divenacher, and what Wayne Divenacher does at Outer is just phenomenal. And I'm hosting him tonight because we want to see what will it take for us to mobilize people around the world that Outer is doing. Their work he's an amazing guy. But I said to him some time ago, Wayne, when you and I show up in a conference, you're usually on the stage and then you disappear. And I don't know you as a person. I'm not going to support you until I really know your heart. So can we hang out together? And so that's how tonight's happened, because we're going to hang out together. Next week, I'm hosting Songezo Zibi, because I think Songezo Zibi is going to be our next president. But I don't want to just see him on a stage. I want to hang out with him. So we're having dinner with him next Friday evening, or Thursday evening, and we've ended up doing 3 sessions. This thing about the Springboks, it's an opportunity for us to get a story out there. So please, if you want to join the Springboks, let me know. The Springbok project. Bill, have you seen our article around the Springboks that I published recently? I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you the article that was published in Vrije Weekblad. And then I want to quickly tell you guys a story about how that happened, because it's actually a really interesting story. So the Springboks, we saw the Springboks, they won. It was against all odds. We saw all of the leadership traits coming out. I got really excited about writing a book, about the idea of writing a book, getting the message out. So I called Max de Prier, because Max de Prier and I are in a community together. He's came from Stellenbosch. So I called Max and said, Max, who should we talk to about publishing the book? He gave me a list of 3 possible publishers. And I sat with the thing, and I've not done anything with it. And the next moment he says, but you know what, Louise, we also want to write a story about it. Can I get Annelies to call you? So Annelies then interviewed me. She wrote the article that went into Vrije Weekblad. Next thing and I said to everybody, I really, really, really want to be published by Penguin Random House, because they might even publish in Canada, and then people in Canada, they will also get the book. So because Knowledge Resources is so South African, we didn't want to do it through Knowledge Resources. So Annelies wrote the story. She interviewed me. It was less than an hour. She wrote a beautiful story. The article goes out. Penguin Random House calls me and says, would you be interested in turning this into a book? It's all about relationships. It's all about meeting Tom Peters, being connected with him on Twitter, continuing to be nice to him on Twitter. And then when I need him, I say, Tom, can you retweet this for me? He retweets it 1 million. He has 1 million followers. So anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Did you want to say something, Craig? Did you want to just say goodbye? Okay. Have a good evening and remain in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Bye.